The Trinka podcast, academic writing done right. Hi, my name is Dr. KK, and this is the Trinka podcast where we talk about language technology, AI in the field of academic publishing, and interviews with experts. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome you to a conversation with Dr. Anupama Kapadia, the Assistant General Manager of Inago, the Editor-in-Chief of Inago Academy, as well as the business head for the publication support services that we offer under Inago. So let's listen in. So you mentioned initially, the first point that you brought up in terms of challenges was that there is an overload of information and it's very difficult to ascertain which is accurate or verify and vet and everything.
Yeah.
So do you foresee a future where let's talk about generative AI? Would that sort of get in the way of this, or is it going to make things better from a researcher point of view for vetting information to confirm, so to get to your writing faster?
So generative AI right now, I don't think it is suitable for that completely. I think we've had a recent webinar, but primarily through that, it is definitely evident even from the experts' point of view. We had an AI specialist also in the panel, and currently it is not self-sufficient. Neither is it accurate, or it does need a lot of fact checking. So I would say no for now, but there's no stopping generative AI because it's there to stay, so I don't think it's going away. If there can be, it can be tuned better, or if it can be more accurate, and if it can not simply throw incorrect references, which it does seem to do right now, even if you're talking about GPT 4.0 is the recent most version, and it still seems to be doing that.
Yes.
Then of course, it can help researchers for sure. There are other concerns that organizations like OpenAI will need to contend with in terms of data security, liability, copyright, etc., which is currently also not really established. The boundaries are not established. So unregulated use of generative AI is a definite risk for any researcher. It can still be used for things that are known, that are standard, right? It is just like any other AI tool or any other tech tool that researchers might be using currently for paraphrasing or summarizing the research. I think that's my opinion so far from whatever I've heard and experienced.
Yes, I guess you're aware that ChatGPT or GPT is opening up the API sort of interface, which will allow people to upload their own sort of data sets, maybe the things that they trust, and then probably the results can be even more. Let's say a researcher has to go through, let's say, 100 papers, and maybe there can be apps that can be made which are fed these 100 papers alone, and maybe the accuracy could be better. That's one angle that I think a lot of people are trying out. So let's hope that things are better for researchers, some of our audience who might be listening to, in terms of their publication journeys. Now, another thing that you mentioned is the grant situation in terms of finding funding, right?
Correct.
And it's a broad point, so you can take whichever aspect of it. So point number one would be, would you expect a tool, maybe even a generative AI tool, to help in this thing? And also you mentioned the abundance of journals and the increased rate of publishing, and that also comes with the the risk of predatory journals, and in terms of funding, a lot of money is needed from a researcher point of view to submit to an open access journal, for example, the article processing charges. So these are the points that I want. So do you think a technology or a tool, generative AI even, can help, or do you have an idea that somebody can work on or something like that? You can think out of the box, whatever comes to your mind.
So that's an interesting question. So I am planning to do some R&D on this aspect.
Right.
We are going to collaborate with research administration offices and research administrators, RAs in short. So we're going to coordinate with some RAs across universities and campuses to actually know this, because they firsthand would know this. Second, I am also in talks with a company that actually that provides funding, resources, and information to select universities, campuses, institutions, etc. That would be in the EU and the UK region. So I don't have an exact answer for this right now. Theoretically, I would like to say generative AI would probably give you a list of things, list of funders, government and otherwise private. Generally, I would say, I think from whatever I've heard so far, countries like US and Japan have already enforced that government aid needs to be open access. So
Right.
any research that is conducted using government funding needs to be open access, because they would like to drive socio-economic impact openly. Other than this, I don't really have first-hand information or knowledge about how helpful it is, but I hope in the next podcast that we do together, I have some more information. But yeah, that's,
No problem. This is
about it. Yeah.
this is a starting of a thought. Maybe something will come out of it.
That has piqued my interest also, to be honest, which
Yeah.
is why we started some discussions already within the industry. We're also attending a lot of conferences, so I'm sure we'll get some insights from there. I think it will change every stakeholder role or function. I think AI is bound to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is limited to just language or just like research, questioning, etc. So it's
Right.
not going to be limited to that. I'm sure someone will come up with an idea that can be implemented in the area of funding, because it is a challenge. Funding is a challenge. It is currently non-equitable. It is also not distributed equally across countries, etc. There is gender bias. I mean, there are a lot of things that are also going wrong with funding, which need to be corrected access wise. So I think definitely someone will come up with a solution, but yeah, I don't have an answer right now.
Right. No, this is, as I said, it's a starting point of a conversation. Now, I have a question. Before I ask the question, however, I would like you to talk about Inago Open, a platform that we have recently created. And can you explain in brief what it is from the point of view of an audience or a listener or a viewer?
Sure. So we recently launched this platform called Inago Academy Open Platform. We realized that, as a team, as a department, as a function that operates in esteemed publishing, and we've been operating it for more than 16 years now, we've already given, we always think of giving back to the community in terms of outreach and what we can provide to researchers, so that they foster their careers, and we get to engage with them, learn from them. So this came out of one of those ideas where we wanted to actually give a platform to researchers or to professionals in the scholarly publishing industry, actually, to actually write out their thoughts in a blog format, or present their research in a plain language summary format, and there's a plethora of categories there. So to help them publish something like this on a platform like ours, and then we get to also disseminate their blogs and their thoughts to our subscribers and to our network, and so as to foster a kind of an intra-community discussion. Currently we're offering this for free, so there is no paywall overall. There are some, of course, restrictions. I would say there are some criteria more than restrictions for them to for us to accept their article as it is. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of benefits that are going to come up soon. So we've just launched phase 1. I would still call it beta because it's still in an experimental phase. We have launched it for individuals right now. We are also planning to launch it for groups and companies and organizations in the near future. So this is what Open Platform is right now. So yeah, feel free to explore.
Right. Can a listener or a viewer access this platform as of now?
Yes, they can. So it is live. I think the link can be also shared with the listeners.
Right.
So what we're looking for right now is content in terms of that is attractive to our readers and to our network of scholarly professionals, because we want relevant discussions to happen. So yes, we're not taking irrelevant articles and blogs right now for that reason. There is no saying what we'll do if we continue this or we discontinue, but for now the platform is completely active and usable, so feel free to use it. And like I said, this is again sort of a phase 1 beta version. Right. So we're also planning some improvements, and also adding on benefits. So yeah, definitely feel free to use the platform.
Right. So my idea was related to such platforms, and that is, it's probably a wild idea. So I'm thinking, if could a company offer a monetization solution for a member of a forum like this? For example, you can think of Patreon. So listeners, some of the listeners who already sort of had watched it, they know that I'm a musician. So if I have to generate funding for my own, let's say, music, then I could probably have a Patreon account, and then I could offer some sort of a thing with different tiers, etc. So do you think such a sort of a monetization model, depending on the content that, let's say, the blog articles that a particular researcher wants to disseminate, could they use such a platform to eventually generate the funding for, let's say, some of their research? I mean, government funding is one thing, but many people fall short of it. So could such a platform provide that extra sort of a cushion in terms of funding?
I think yes, it can. Honestly, I had not thought of this. But from the way you explained it, I don't see why not.
Right.
It's just that we can't take any liability, as an organization or as someone who hosts the platform, rather, right? We cannot take any liability for any false claims, false facts. So that responsibility kind of falls with the person who is entering the information onto the platform.
Right.
But I don't see why not, because we do allow links, we do allow links to published papers. If, say, suppose I was a researcher and I want to do this, what you're saying, and if I want to make a profile for myself, right?
Right.
I could make it similar to the OrcID profile, right? So I can have all my papers listed under my profile. I can also mention, if I choose to, what is going to be my future areas of research or study, and I can ask for funding. I mean, I can provide a link like Patreon or anything else that I use currently, GoFundMe, etc. I can provide a link there. So if there are readers who are interested in contributing, or if we have a lot of subscribers that belong to funding committees and decision-making departments, if they're interested, definitely they'll contact the person who's writing, and the information of the writer or the author is also clearly visible, so it's not masked. So yeah, it's a possibility for sure.
It is a wild idea. So the way that I was looking at it is affiliations. I think the collaboration is the way to go in the future. So maybe an Inago Academy Open can collaborate with, for example, let's say GoFundMe or let's say Patreon, and some sort of a link up where the researchers who want to use it, who seem to have the knack to build an audience, for example, can use it to their advantage and generate funds. So another idea that I had is, for example, a researcher who is struggling to maybe, who's a good content creator, maybe even in the video podcast realm or something like that, who can maybe even like something on they have their own Twitch channel and they can promote it, and eventually the monetization can come through that. So they are probably working on a manuscript or going through a data set, and they can just share their screen and explain their methodology for a young sort of a watcher, a viewer, listener. And that way they can, so our platform can be sort of that facilitator to sort of connect the different things that a researcher could use to potentially monetize. That's the idea. So again, it's a very wild idea in my opinion, but we can probably think about it, and this is how I think ideas eventually they get fleshed out. Now, one other question, I just again when you were talking about this, I had so assume that I'm a researcher and I have a data set that is quite valuable for whatever reason it might be. It is a clinical data set, and I have some sort of patient demographics that are relatively rare for whatever reason.
Right.
Can I put it behind a paywall? If you understand, as in some details
Can I
that
put
I'm
it behind a paywall?
Yeah, like let's say I have in the sense, let's say I have a data set that another researcher can use in their meta-analysis or whatever that I want to use it. So and do you think such an idea, in the sense such a sort of a platform that offers some sort of information being put behind a paywall, again leading to monetization for the individual reviewer, would that work? For example, lots of apps are collecting lots of data, like medical devices, for example. So maybe a individual user can put something behind a paywall that can be accessed, which is not openly available or published, and that can be monetized. So what are your thoughts on this wild idea? What are your thoughts?
So see again. So I really, so from a paywall point of view, I'm not sure yet. Let me get back to that.
Right.
But what I currently know is there are repositories. So I'm sure you have heard of reproducibility as a concept in science, correct?
Yes.
So a lot of researchers, especially experienced researchers, and also I think from a journal point of view, the editorial team, etc., they sort of encourage, right? They encourage newer researchers or active researchers to deposit their raw data, right, whatever their data that they use, in a repository such that future researchers can use that data and reproduce the same results. So that is it's a very layman explanation of reproducibility, but this is how it is. And I don't think there's paywall involved there. Right. So this is something from a science, it encourages science, it fosters better science. So this is why it is encouraged. So I don't think there is paywall there, but I think there is, I think you have to take some sort of a membership, or you have to pay a nominal fee for your data to get registered, because otherwise it can also be misused. Right. So then for the platform that is again hosting such data, they have to take some liability for hosting this to ensure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands. So that sort of already exists.
Right.
Yeah, what was your other question? Was there a
No, it is related to this alone. I mean, I probably can flesh it out just a little bit. Let's assume that, let's say I'm conducting a research based on the one of the smart devices, let's say an Apple Watch or something, okay? And the watch can, let's say if it is configured to capture all the potential information that can be caught across like a 24-hour period for, let's say, several weeks for the subject group. And so there could be components, let's say I'm okay with, let's say, heart rate or whatever, like, you know, whatever it is that obviously that people will talk about, but I have so much metadata that somebody else who's doing a larger study based on how, let's say, an Apple Watch can be used in whatever it is that we don't, maybe even a tech person, somebody who wants to use Apple Watches to do something. So that information that is not yet published, which I have in my database because I've taken consent from my sort of subjects, can you monetize it? Can that be put behind like a, let's say, $1 for, let's say, 20 patients or something like that, and you know, you can get some sort of a thing. That's the idea, and that is primarily, I mean, you explained the repository idea. So I'm putting let's say a paywall for select information, not the ones that have already been published. In that case, can that be an income stream or a revenue stream for a researcher? And you know, that will partially probably help in the initial you know, some of the concerns that the researchers have raised when you took your workshop. So that is the idea. So I hope that is clear.
Yeah, so it is clear, but I would probably say that, see, there is no ethical concern in doing so. So then I don't think it's a no-no from a publication ethics point of view. If the researcher thinks that there is enough value you know, in the data that they collect, and if they think that it can be monetized or it can generate revenue, then yes, I mean, they can definitely weigh the pros and cons and do so. I mean, in lieu of, say, I think there would be probably a better benefit with, you know, in terms of collaborating with that other researcher in the same area of interest and getting your work out there, securing better funding, maybe, if, you know, again, if the research is very novel, etc. So yeah, I think they would probably need some guidance, is what I would say. Right now, I don't think it's a no-no. I've not heard of any you know, ethics oversight that relates to selling of data per se. If they own the copyright, if they are you know, convinced that it can generate revenue in any form, then but I think it's better to just take some guidance from people who've already ideally done it, or plan to do it, or senior researchers maybe. So I think just to be on the safer side, you know, because sometimes some things like these, they sound better in your head. of course. Of course. I mean, who doesn't like money? But say, I mean, it should not happen that, you know, you spend so much time and nothing comes out of it really, or very little comes out of it. So as a researcher, time is extremely invaluable, almost equal to money, I think. Right. It also depends on which stage of research career you are in. So yeah, a whole host of factors, but interesting idea nevertheless. Just to clarify for even me and you, as well as for our listeners, the idea is, let's say, Inago Academy Open is a platform that we create to facilitate things, right? And most of the things that Inago does in terms of such outreach, as well as, let's say, Trinka, the app itself, the idea behind is to create something that will help the researchers move on in their career. So let's assume that the problem statement is funding. So can such a platform, or can such platforms help researchers to somehow monetize whatever they do
do in real life, but also promote academic research. That's the idea. So we'll work on the little bit of a seed that we have sown right now. So we'll work on it. So thanks for sharing your ideas. I hope you had fun listening in the conversation that I had with Dr. Anupama Kapadia, and you're inspired by it. The Trinka podcast covers everything related to language technology, the impact of generative AI in academic publishing, as well as interviews with experts from the fields. For example, Anupama Kapadia is a publication industry expert. She's a key opinion leader, I would call her, and also people who are involved in the field of language technology and generative AI, etc. We also have some episode where we discuss the usage of English language. The whole idea behind this podcast is to help you improve your academic publishing workflow so that you can get your work done faster in a more efficient way. If you're listening to us on Spotify or any other major podcasting platform, please rate us 5 stars if you like our content, because that will help the algorithm push such podcasts and such episodes up so that other discerning listeners who want to know more about, let's say, generative AI or language technology or academic publishing will also get such episodes show up when they are searching for content. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell notification icon, and also if you like some of the episodes that we have published so far, share it with your friends, peers, and colleagues. We are very passionate about sharing knowledge that we have, and that's why this podcast exists. If you are on social media, we are also on social media. Just search for Trinka AI on any major social media platform. For example, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as Instagram. And also we are on Weibo and WeChat for our Chinese audience. Just search for Trinka AI, follow us, leave us a note, ask your questions, send in your suggestions. We recently had somebody ask the etymology of Trinka, the name, which is, the Trinka AI app is named after Trinka D'Cunha, one of the founders or the brains behind the app, and somebody asked about the etymology of the name and the origins and the context in which it was used as a name for her. So it was fun researching on this and answering, and Trinka herself had fun. So let us know whatever questions that you might have. If you like writing by email, the email address is podcast@trinka.ai, and I promise to go through all the emails that you send and I'll respond to them as fast as we can. On behalf of the wonderful team that supports me in creating this content and publishing it and getting it across to you, this is Dr. KK signing off for the Trinka podcast, academic writing done right. I'll see you in the next one.